Hey everyone, I want to talk all about the mistakes that I've made on my journey to OCD and anxiety recovery. Someone asked me, we hear a lot of stuff about what to do, how to dispute irrational beliefs, why using paper is important, why life structure is important. But I had someone ask me a very specific question, which I thought would actually be a really good video. And that is the fallibility of myself and the mistakes that I've made on my journey to OCD and anxiety recovery. And they wanted me to they asked me if I could talk about other things outside of OCD, my career, my relationship, my relationship with my mother, who I didn't get along with for a long time, my relationship with my friends on things that friends talk about, politics, money, religion, the big things I always joke about, stuff that people talk about behind closed doors, dinners with people they know. Society makes it seem like no one really talks about this stuff, but everyone talks about it. And everyone's very, very afraid of rejection by other people. So I kind of want to talk about those as well. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, hit that like button down below. I went for a hike today with someone I coach up in Denver. We had a great time. I realized I got a little bit sunburned. I just jumped out of the shower. My wife and I are going to have dinner. It's on Sunday night, and I wanted to come on here and make this video because I set myself some guidelines that I wanted to run by for content for you guys, a little bit higher than I normally do, just to see kind of how it goes as a challenge to myself. So might see me a little bit more content than I already produced, but it's good because there's so much to talk about. And this is a particular topic that I haven't covered. I'm going to be talking about other pieces of content I haven't covered in a while, or just new things. One of the upcoming videos I'm going to do is anxiety surrounding vacations, coming back, the belief about that life should be a certain way, super specific guidelines when it comes to disputing, right here with this book, how OCD mimics things when it comes to health OCD, harm OCD, fear of losing control, self-harm OCD, the fallibility example I'm going to do now. So if you guys have any examples for stuff that you haven't seen covered in a while, I do have a large list I go through. I can't make videos on everything people ask because some of them are very specific and they won't correlate to a lot of people. But I do think this particular video will be very relatable to everyone. And if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services, please send us an email at phil@ocdrecovery.com. So the first thing I want to talk about, one of my biggest fallibilities was I was a very bad compulsive liar. I was a compulsive liar my whole life. I lied about my successes, my test scores. I lied about being with women. I lied about my gym scores. And all of that lying came down from a fear of rejection. I think this video is going to be a little bit more personal than some of my other videos, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. I lied a lot, which I thought was my ego, but it really was just the fear of rejection, right? Because societal rejection and rejection by other people. I put a lot of merit on wanting to look a certain way. That's why body dysmorphia hit me really bad. The values, remember the things we value the most, OCD goes for those things. So because I valued my body and the way I looked, and I valued this persona that I built around me. My friends call me Nick Beach because I'm from the Jersey Shore. I got the shore tattooed on me there and then Jersey down my forearm. So I kind of had this personality persona. I worked with the Jersey Shore cast. I got to know them while they worked there. And I just lived this image, and I felt like I always had to keep it up. I think this is probably really common among celebrities and reality TV stars. And just if you're ever finding this, anyone that's in that situation, especially if you're a celebrity or famous, you don't have to do that. I know it feels like it because your entire identity is latched to it. You don't have to. You can break down the fears. You can break down the fear of rejection and everything. So I lied a lot. I think that's not something that was really good for my life at all, and it got me into a lot of trouble. Some of the biggest mistakes I made in my career, my business, was thinking that success in business was going to be easy, which I thought, you could come out of the gate hot, have some good discipline, and then maybe in a year or two, you could fizzle out and just kind of be lazy, but that's not the case. Now, my wife and I coming up our 3rd year anniversary in our business of September 28th. I'm probably more than likely more productive and more busy and got more things going on and have more things I have to figure out because we have a team to manage that my wife is so amazing to manage right now because I'm doing so much with OCD recovery, so we have the balancing act. But I put a lot of pressure on my wife. I backed away from the business. I still did things. I still built up certain deals and sales, but I was focusing so much on OCD, I forgot about Erica in many ways, and I think that was a fallible mistake I made. I don't think it was. And it happens, right, because you're human. Again, this video is not typical to what you probably see me talk about, but this is why I wanted to make this video because I think this is really good. This is actually probably the only time I felt moderately uncomfortable, because it just goes to show you talking about this stuff sometimes is just odd. Not in a sense where I'm like, oh my God, it's not easy for human beings to talk about their fallibility. I've gotten very good at that because I talk about it all the times in the webinars and my coaching calls. So just being overly cocky in business, thinking I know everything, watching 10, because I tend to have someone, my wife and anyone that knows me, if I focus on something, I tend to focus on it a lot. And I'm someone that, you might be in a profession, and if I study that profession for a month, I tend to seem in my mind that I know it more than the person that is in that, because I have a very good memory when I care. When I care about something and I find passion on it, I use that I was using it a lot more as a conditional way to put people down, which I thought was a mistake. The third mistake is a lot of big ones. I got really cocky with OCD and anxiety recovery, and I thought I knew more than I did. This is in the beginning when I was doing like a coaching call or two a month. I definitely had the skills and the knowledge to help other people, and I was pretty much recovered by that point. But I thought I knew a lot more than I did. And I really want to take a thanks right now for Moment and Rob and my wife. Moment, Rob, and my wife really kind of calmed me down a little bit and helped show me that you can, even though whether you have ADHD or not, whether you have that, 0 to 100 personality, you can change that. You can learn to balance things out, and you can learn to be more humble, which I didn't think was possible. And that was a hard one for me, because when you get better from OCD, you realize how many people don't understand OCD, which is 99,999 out of 100,000. And that's people who all work with OCD. I can count on my one hand how many people I would say understand OCD, and they all tend to work at this company. I know other people that really do understand it that I follow. They just don't really get it full blown. And that's not anyone's fault, but it's because the experience in this particular sector trumps everything. It's like trying to say, just because you've read 100 books on World War II, that you know what it's like to storm the D-Day beaches and watch your friends get murdered and get mowed down by enemy fire from machine gun bunkers and their guts are hanging out. You don't know what that's like, which is okay. It doesn't mean the principles, you can't help teach people principles, but that's what separates the experience and the emotional connection with people. It's why I've been able so well to connect with people. My ability to public speak, my ability to show my personality. And I think anyone that knows me and this is a fallibility I'm about to go into, anyone that knows me has always said, you might know Nick for 5 minutes, but it seems like he's your best friend your whole life. I've always had that kind of like personal connection with human beings, whether they're, I was at a party yesterday with my wife, and I was playing cornhole and Connect 6 with a 5 and 8-year-old kid of this girl that was there. And it was just like, I guess if you would have looked at this from afar, you'd have been like, oh, that's his cousins. Like, because I could talk to people so easily, and I was a tour guide. But I used that in an incorrect way, and I started to be really cocky about it and shove it down people's faces, and just, it wasn't good. So a lot of the mistakes I made came from arrogance and overconfidence, but the arrogance and overconfidence flooded down from fear of rejection. So the way it actually looked was at the core. I'm going to put this kind of like, I'm going to write it like this. The core fear was very hidden to me, or maybe it wasn't. I just didn't want to acknowledge it. So the core fear was rejection. Okay. So, and that was rejection by others and rejection by the self. And then what happens is that rejection came down, and there wasn't an intrusive thought or an image, but there was almost this urge to act, cocky plus arrogant. I think this is probably the best way to describe it. So you had this hidden fear of rejection. It came down. This was very much in the shadows. And then what would happen is I would come across as cocky and arrogant. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this and draw this out, most of society sees people like this being cocky and arrogant and labels them as narcissists. So as I always say, the term narcissist doesn't have any meaning anymore. It's lost its definition. Is there NPD, narcissistic personality disorder? Yes. It's much more rare than the amount that people use on a daily basis. So I have to put this on. I can feel my lips being chapped from the summer because it's been so damn dry here, even though we've had a lot of rain in Colorado. Most of the people that you think are narcissists and cocky and arrogant are more than likely they just have serious fears of rejection. Once they break down the fears of rejection, this tends to dissipate. It doesn't mean you might not brag here and there. You might be playing sports. You're like, yeah, I showed you. But it's not coming across in the way that It always was. And then what are those common compulsions that I gave into? Trying to show off, needing to prove people wrong, yelling at people on the internet. That was a big fallibility for me too. I spent a lot of time arguing with people on the internet when I was really into exercise physiology in the beginning of OCD recovery. I yell at people and say, stuff like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. How dare you talk about OCD like that?" Now I'm so much more accepting about people saying, I want to leave. I don't like what you do, or all that stuff. And that stuff, as I understand it, I don't try to change anyone's opinion. If they ask me questions on why they think these philosophies are the best philosophies to live by, I'll defend these philosophies till the day I die. I think from an anecdotal perspective, they've lasted the tale of time, thousands of years. Stoicism, Taoism, Buddhism, and all these other Greco-Roman philosophies and Chinese, Eastern philosophies that have just been around for thousands and thousands of years. And they're not fancy and they're not sexy, but they take hard work. The other mistake I made was, this is probably the most difficult one to talk about. I treated my wife very poorly, and I used that as an excuse. I used my OCD as an excuse. So I would yell a lot. I had anger outbursts. I've done it on the street where people have noticed. I was with two of my neighbors today, and they were talking about this. You've made so much progress on this. I remember one time seeing you in the morning one time, and I didn't really know you, but I just, something was wrong with you, and I just didn't know what it was. And they were like, we didn't know if it was depression or if you were addicted to something. So Erica was kind of the brunt end of that. I think a lot of people aren't proud of talking about that. Well, it's not that I don't think they aren't. Because a fear of rejection, fear of being judged by the crowd. And this isn't to desensitize or play down, like, oh, it's okay, he had OCD. What I did was unacceptable behaviorally, okay? It was unacceptable in the fact that, like, you could never accept that. It was just that the behavior wasn't good, and it got me into trouble. And Erica was going to leave me if I didn't change. So Erica became the punching bag. The dogs became the punching bag. I let a lot of things out that I wasn't necessarily proud of, but I reeled it in by reading this book right here, How to Control Your Anger Before It Controls You. I'm actually rereading it right now. I haven't read this book in a very long time, so I wanted to reread it. I think this book is a great adjunct. I might read this book every couple of years. I've read Stubbornly Refused probably 4 or 5 times in my life just because there's so much to take in. And I was also obviously doing it compulsively. Those are all really the main things I did that I was, fallible for. The relationship with my mother. My mother grew up in Brooklyn by 2 alcoholic family members. They kicked her out of the house when she was 17 and she had a tough childhood. Now, when you have that and you hold resentment against your mother, because my mother was really big on a lot of people, they want to be friends with their kids. No problem with that. It just probably doesn't work out. My mom wanted to be a parent, and she was very strict with me. All my other friends were allowed to do what they want. Unfortunately, a lot of those friends are dead now from overdoses and other things I've gone through in my life, or they were in really bad places, or they're in and out of rehab. And then some of my friends are sober, and I love my friends. Like I wouldn't trade my friends for anything. I think they're all very unique characters, and I miss the ones that aren't here anymore. I mean, my ex-girlfriend died. The first girl I ever dated, I went to prom with. Sad case. I've lost my neighbor. I've lost other friends I've known from high school to overdoses. Fentanyl and heroin hit my town really, really hard. So I think that, I spent so much time trying to change my mom and change my friends. Being like, I cared. My wife would say to me, you care more about them than they care about themselves. You're going to literally, Jim Rohn said perfectly. He said, like, I tried to change people so much it almost killed me. And I know that sounds funny, but you can't do that. You can just help and support. And this is for moms and dads. If you're listening to this, if you find this video, if you're with a partner who has OCD, both of you have OCD, and maybe one of you doesn't, you're not going to be able to change anyone. You can't change anyone's opinions. You can't change anyone's beliefs, no matter how small or how large. You could just inspire and give them the tools and the road maps and let them do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about anything like this, please let me know. Hope to hear from you soon. And as always, Phil at OCDrecovery.com, and we'll get back to you in a timely fashion. Have a good one, everyone.